Welcome, welcome, welcome. So nice to be with each of you. Quick announcement. This Wednesday is will be the first Wednesday of the month. And the first Wednesday of the month, I offer two meditations, one at 12:30 here, Mountain Time, US, and one at 7 p.m. And if you're in Europe or another place in the world, that earlier meditation might be a great time for you to join us if you're normally not able to. So we'd love to see you there. And these meditations are a wonderful time to connect deeply in the direct experience of truth, of your true nature, as well as this immense grace and light that blesses us each time we come together. It's quite powerful if you haven't joined us before. And so I do hope that you can join us for the weekly meditations. Okay. Well, beautiful. I think that's all the announcements that I have. I will say just one other practical thing. It just has to do with how I share. And as many of you know, I've struggled with my health over the last 7 months or so with long COVID. And oftentimes I speak about it. And the reason I'm speaking about it is I don't want any attention. So that's not the reason. And I don't want people, sending me emails and trying to fix me, even though that's a beautiful intention that you have. What I'm wanting to point out is that our direct experience of our heart, our direct experience of our consciousness, our direct experience of true nature can be quite brilliant despite what's happening in our outer world or in our physical body. And so often I'll speak about a difficulty that I'm having with my health, but I'll follow it up with, and despite this, there's this brilliance here, there's this light here, there's this love here. And in this world, in the human egoic world, we tend not to think that that's possible. We think that if our body or our mind or our emotional nature or our outward reality is difficult, then we assume that our inner world is also difficult. And I really want to shake that up, because what I'm inviting here is faith that the light is greater than any darkness. That my light is greater than my experience of COVID. My light is greater than any experience of hell here on planet Earth. And if we want to be awake in this world, we have to believe the light is greater than the darkness, the peace, the absolute peace of our being is greater than the chaos of this world. And so I'm inviting you to join me in faith in that. But sometimes I'll use my life as an example. Yes, I'm suffering, but there's a brilliance here. I'm physically suffering, but there's a brilliance here. And I'm established in this brilliance. This brilliance is my nature, as it is your nature. And if you've forgotten that, I'm here to remind you that your light, your beauty, your divinity, your strength is greater than any physical, mental, emotional, biological difficulty. And so please, nobody, no one worry about me. I'm getting better. I'll tell you that I'm getting better. That even if I died this day, I would die a man full of light, full of grace, full of love. And so please have faith in this. Please know this in your own experience. It's one of the great challenges of this world is that this world will bring up every challenge. Every challenge. And invite you to ask yourself, who are you? What are you? Are you that which is greater? Or are you that which is weaker? Like, what is it that you're made of? And so for those of you who have been coming the last 7 weeks or so, I've been speaking about these different qualities of divinity. And so this week I had something planned, but it became, what's the right word? Well, I had to change course because what's happening in the world. It seemed like something that I shouldn't be talking about, given what's going on in the world. And so I shifted course and decided to speak about the quality of the divine warrior. The warrior. And so different weeks I've spoken about peace and compassion. Last week I spoke about the ground of being and knowing yourself as this deep, powerful ground that shows up as the antidote if you have a doubting mind, a confused mind. But this week, I want to speak about the warrior. The warrior is the one who can stand up to darkness, who says yes to the light and no to oppression, no to chaos, no to being enslaved. And so earlier in the week, I can't remember what day it was, Wednesday, maybe it was Thursday. I woke up and saw the news that the Russian army had invaded the democratic nation of Ukraine. And I thought in this moment we could all close our eyes and connect to our strength, our power, our light, and to send this strength, this light, this power to the good people of Ukraine. May their hearts be filled up with strength, with light, with power. May they be rooted in truth. May they repel the forces of darkness and confusion. And send the Russian army back to Russia, where they probably would be very happy to go home to their families and not be in this useless war. So we're inviting the grace of God to be with the people of Ukraine, to be with the soldiers of Ukraine, to be with the Russian soldiers and to open their hearts and to help them find their senses, to be with the Russian leadership, the generals, and especially Mr. Putin, to awaken their hearts with love. They may end this pointless conflict. We're inviting grace to triumph. And so I invite you right now to feel into your heart, feel into your belly. And I ask you, do you feel strength here? A divine strength, a power. The kind of power and strength that is willing to fight for truth, fight for freedom. And so I ask you from a place of inquiry, do you easily feel connected to this strength? Or is there a deficiency here? Many spiritual people have a numbness, a deadness. They might have a very bright heart of compassion, but a compassion without any strength, without any willingness to stand up to that which is untrue. And so I ask you, if you feel inside what's there, are you connected? Deeply rooted, deeply empowered to this sense, this feeling of being a warrior here on planet Earth. And it would be completely normal for you to say, no, I don't feel that at all. I feel that love and peace is the answer, and I would never do anything violent ever. And, that's okay if you identify fully being a pacifist. But if you look at, say, for example, the country of Tibet, they have a really incredibly strong connection to non-dual peace and absolute compassion. But when the Chinese came, the Chinese say, well, there's not a country of Tibet anymore. This is the country of China. And so sometimes when we are really efficient, deeply connected to a quality like peace and compassion, without being connected to a quality of strength and power, the quality of the warrior, and sometimes our home might be taken away, our family, our country, our life. And this world that God has put us in is a very interesting world. In in other realms, in the heavenly realms, we can all just kind of be like a Care Bear. Those of you in other countries know what a Care Bear is, but as these cartoon characters, and they had these big hearts, and their hearts had like rainbows on them, and they could shoot rainbow energy and love energy or compassion energy or hope, or so anytime there was a problem, they'd get together and they would share this love with each other. They'd heal the problem just purely with love, with kindness. The Care Bears, they didn't have any swords. They didn't yield a sword. And keep in mind, those of you who show up to the Wednesday meditations and have experienced the energy of skanda, from this lineage, skanda is the warrior of light, the general of light, one who leads the gods in the fight over darkness. And whether you see that as metaphorical or however you see that, in this world, wars can be metaphorical, but they can also be very much real, as you see on the news, very much real. And if we're a spiritual person who doesn't have a backbone and doesn't know how to fight, we might discover one day that our life is taken, and then our home is taken, that our family is taken, that our job is taken, that the truth is taken. I saw a picture this week of like a playground in Ukraine. It's a picture of like a playground, like equipment, like a seesaw. And right next to it was a hole in the ground with a unexploded missile from a Russian warplane. So there are times on the path when God asks you to stand up. To stand up and yield some type of sword. And there's times in your life, like if you get in a fight with your partner, or with your child, sometimes we need to yield the sword of compassion. Sometimes we need to yield the sword of discipline. Sometimes we need to yield the sword of truth and say, hey, no, that's not right. That's not right what's going on here. Unfortunately, for most of us, we'll never have to face real life war. And in the last, 5-10 years here in the West, people have gone on tangents, just really attacking the United States, attacking our own country. And, as we're attacking each other within our own country, and as we're busy fighting with ourselves, arguing politics and about vaccines and masks and, these types of things, the right and the left, and just arguing with each other. There are other forces here on planet Earth who are really developing their strength. China is incredibly developing their strength and using it to support genocide. And you see what Putin's doing right now. We have a choice. We have a choice in this world to sit back and be sleepy within our own consciousness and let dictators and authoritarians take over this world. Or we can choose to stand for truth and for justice, for democracy, for freedom. We can choose to stand up and fight. Now, it'd be easy for me to get on some platform and say, well, all war is wrong. All war is violence. It's easy as a spiritual person to take on this type of thinking and say there's never a time where we should raise our voice or our fist. We should always be sweet like bunny rabbits, be compassionate, and send warm, fuzzy energy into the Chinese and the Russians, or to George W. Bush, or whoever it is creating the war. It'd be easy just to sit, to say nothing, to have no response. And that's what most spiritual people do, is no response. We try to live in the transcendent world. And when you live in the transcendent world, oftentimes your home begins to fall apart. And so if we're going to live here on planet Earth, we have to know about this quality of strength. And in the past, I've spoken about the strength as the ability to withstand darkness, to breathe through it, to allow it, and to outlast it. To outlast it. To sit and to breathe and to feel and to open and say a gentle mantra like, this too shall pass. This too shall pass. But there's times in life when we need a proactive strength, which doesn't sit back and say, this too shall pass, but rather says, hell no, over my dead body, over my dead body. And we have to be very careful here because, again, it's easy to get involved in a righteousness, thinking you know what is best or this or that. But there's a difference between righteousness and truth. And truth, sovereignty, autonomy. These are all spiritual qualities. Sovereignty, autonomy, truth, strength, power. And so there are times in our life when God asks us to stand up and say, no. No. No to that which is untrue. And yes to that which is. And if you feel in yourself and you feel directly into your experience, what you'll find is righteousness has a quality of heat, like pushiness, justification. It's really mental, has a feeling of justification. Whereas truth has a feeling of coolness to it, deeply rooted in power. Truth doesn't have a big argument that comes with it. Righteousness, oftentimes we're trying to shove our argument down the other person's throat. Down the other person's throat. Now, there's this wonderful story of Vivekananda where he's on this boat. Vivekananda is a great Indian sage in the last century. He was a student and successor of Ramakrishna. And he was on this boat. I think he was coming back from the United States to India. And he was having a conversation with two Christian missionaries. And the conversation got heated. The missionaries started really attacking Vivekananda, attacking the Hindu religion and his spirituality. They were attacking Mother India, his homeland. And he just grabbed one of them, by the collar, began to choke the fella. And the missionary apologized immediately. It's a funny story. But Vivekananda was saying, like, I won't have this. I won't have it, what you're doing. The way you're attacking me with your righteousness and your imperialistic missionary view that your way is better than my way. I'm going to stand in my truth and my power. Not only am I going to stand in it, I'm going to create a boundary, a physical boundary with my fists, with my hands. And so again, many people might say, well, that's not very spiritual. I'd be really spiritual just to be peaceful and walk away. But again, like, does your spirituality have a strength to it, a fight to it? Or does it just roll over and play dead? Roll over and play dead. And again, this is one of those qualities that we have to be very careful with. Because our egoic nature, our righteous nature, would love to be given permission to do what it wants, say what it wants, to be violent, to yell, to scream, to kick, to invade or assault. And I'm not speaking about that. I'm speaking about you being rooted in the truth. And that requires that you do your work, that you know the difference between emotion, righteousness, and truth. That you do your work. You patiently sit with the truth and ask these questions. What is the truth? What is it? Am I willing to put all ideas in my mind aside and come deep in the belly, deep in the heart, and discover what the truth is? And again, a little hint here is that the truth does not come with a massive argument. The truth is not a dissertation. It doesn't come with a dissertation. The truth is very simple. Always. It's always simple. It's ridiculously simple. I saw this thing on the news where there's this elderly man, and he walked out in the street, and he walked up to some Russian soldiers, and they had, their AK-47s, they had their rifles, they had their tanks. And he looked at them and told them to get to get the fuck out of his country, that they have their own country. You have your own country. Just go be in your own country. Get out of my country. Go to your country. You have your own country. Be there. Take care of your own country. Let us take care of our country. You see, the truth, this old man, no weapon, he walked up with his heart and his hara, and he spoke the truth to these men with machine guns and tanks. And one of the reasons I imagine that the soldiers did not kill him because they knew this is the truth. We don't need to be here. Like a lot of the Russian soldiers, they don't want to be there. They're just following the orders of their leaders. And see, sometimes in life, we're given orders to do terrible things. And will we go right along with it? Will we roll over and play dead? Or will we stand up and say no? Will we stand up and say no? You will not do this to me, to my family, to my autonomy, to my home, to my homeland, to my temple. You will not do this in my world. And so again, I ask you, do you know this strength inside, this power? Or is there something else in the place? Is there fear? Is there confusion? Is there lack? Is there a story that we're not strong, that we're weak because someone told us that? Because someone took advantage of us or bullied us or betrayed us? And of course, all of us have these things within us. And the question is do we act spiritually aloof and ignore these things and just try to transcend them, try to meditate them away? Or have you faced these energies within you and fully met them with love? It's a funny thing. You discover this strength that I'm speaking about through loving yourself, through being with yourself, through being with yourself in the darkness and not turning away. It's the willingness to fully allow, to compassionately embrace, and to not turn away. This last quality here of not turning away. This is what builds and creates strength within you. The strength is actually already there. It's an aspect of true nature. But most of us have become so soft in this world, or so beaten down by this world, that we've been completely disconnected from our strength, from our power. So it's the willingness to face everything within you and to not turn away. And then to take it a step further, because we're speaking about the strength of the warrior. The strength of the warrior is the strength to act, to build, to create. And again, it doesn't always mean going and strangling someone who did you wrong or standing up to a bully. Sometimes it means creating something new in this world, building something new. You know, when I was young, I had a flavor of like the social justice warrior in me, and I'd protest and do that kind of thing. And Back in the olden days, you'd protest in the streets and make signs and sign petitions, mail letters, like literally mail letters. Now people just send emails. And I can remember just seeing like, God, this world, there's so much pain and suffering. If only the governments would change and this and that. If only the armies would put down their weapons, that was the thought. And when I met my teacher, I realized like he wasn't out in the streets fighting politically. What he was doing was he was building a place for people to come and learn and grow and live a different type of way. I thought, oh, here's a different way where you're using this energy of the warrior to build something to create an elevation of consciousness. A place where people can come and grow, outgrow the old ways of being, and grow in love, grow in strength, grow in power, grow in light, grow in consciousness. And if we're going to build anything in this world, we have to be a warrior. It takes great strength to build anything, to create new structures, new forms. Because you go against the old structures, the old habits. To build a church, the first thing you need to do is amass, some kind of financial wealth. And a wealth that you're not just spending on your own self or your own family. So there's a fight against the norm. Say, no, I'm saving this, I'm amassing this. So that the grace of God has a place to take root here on planet Earth. So the grace of God can take root here in this world of darkness. And so part of being a warrior, if you look at, well, what are you building? What kind of life? What kind of consciousness? What kind of home? What kind of family? What vocation, what gift are you giving? How are you serving in this world? I'll tell you something funny that my parents, they owned a company that sold paper. It was the exact same company that the show The Office is about. It's like about as boring as a job as anybody could have, is selling paper. And they wanted me to run that business. And just imagine if I said yes to that. We wouldn't be here in this way. Imagine if Craig Holiday was busy selling paper for a life. And, they gave this gift to one of my brothers, and they were able to make a lot of money doing it, have a big house in the suburbs and all that kind of stuff. But the warrior in me said, "Hell no, hell no. I'll be broke and work a shovel on the mountainside. Working for $8 an hour for my spiritual teacher. I'll do that instead because I want to build something within me. And I want to build something in this world, something of meaning, something of light, something of grace. And so again, I'll just ask you, what type of spiritual person are you? Do you know this strength, this power? Do you listen to it? Do you let it guide you in your inner world and your outer world? Do you let the light guide you? The truth guide you in your inner world and the outer world? Or do you let laziness guide you? Fear guide you? And some of you who are real comfortable with the shadow side of power, they let anger guide you. And that's a whole other thing. The flip side of the spiritual warrior is a true warrior doesn't let anger guide them. They let the truth guide them. So anyways, all right. So I'll welcome some questions, sharing. I just ask that the questions are short, clear, and direct, please and thank you. Sometimes I feel a little bit like a broken record, but short, clear, and direct, please and thank you. There was someone who emailed me a question. Let me see if I can find it. Hi, Craig. I recently experienced an incredibly powerful root chakra energy emergence on the final day of a 16-day darkness retreat. I love it. I tell you this. This is from Sam. I love people who are crazy enough to do a darkness retreat. It's a retreat where you sit in darkness. So 16 days. So deep bow of respect to you, my friend. What do you think is the best thing to do when such an event occurs? So basically a lot of energies moving through the root chakra. Initially, I just sat and let it happen. Then I breathed into the point. It was so intense that I thought it might injure me. But at the same time, felt as though it might be doing some very deep healing. Yeah, so I'll say this. Spiritual energies never injure you, like the energy in and of itself. But what can injure you is if you deeply resist the energy. So that's your egoic response to the energy. So say, for example, like I was a young guy and my kundalini woke up with this massive energy, this river of light trying to pour and like flow up my spine. And the light itself, like the overall experience was incredibly painful. It's like ridiculously hard. It brought me to tears every day, but the light itself was not injuring me. The light itself, like Sam was writing, was deeply healing and awakening. My egoic resistance to it made it difficult. And, I could have had a thought like, God, this is going to injure me, but, or this will hurt me. This hurts. This is crazy. This is ridiculous, the amount of pain I'm in. But the pain isn't coming from the light. The pain is coming from the egos, the superego, the unconscious clamping down around this energy. And that's where we get ourselves in trouble, is basically our nervous system's response to something that it does not understand. And so, listen, my friend, the big thing here is whenever you have energy in your body, the way I respond is you breathe into it, you open to it, and you let it flow. And that's going to require that you relax around it. So if energy's stuck in one set, like in a center, like your root chakra, I might notice the space around the intensity. So there's the intensity itself, like right in the center. But if you notice the space around the intensity, oftentimes your nervous system begins to relax. It kind of wakes up and realizes, oh, there's space here. There's space here. there's room for this intensity to flow, to empty out, to unravel, to cut loose. But the reason these energies are really intense is because we fight with them. So they're big, divine energies, but then our nervous system fights with it. And so I invite you to look at a question of, like, do I trust this energy? Do I trust the intelligence of God? Do I trust the process of spiritual awakening? Do I trust? When you trust, the body relaxes and energy flows and moves and integrates. When you don't trust, energy gets stuck. Sometimes it's as simple as that. Yeah, you can breathe into the point, but sometimes, sometimes what people do is they try too hard. They feel like something happening in their root chakra, or their belly, or their heart. Okay, I'm going to breathe into the belly. I'm going to breathe into the heart. And so it's almost like there's an I, like a superego I, that's attempting to breathe into something. Versus if you just jump into the energy and become one with the energy, like tantrically, you just allow yourself to be the intensity. Then the energy might explode through you, and you might realize, oh, I am the light. I am the light. Versus I am the one trying to control the light and breathe into it and, make something happen or manipulate it. Or what most spiritual people do is they try to be in charge of the experience versus just joining with the experience, jumping into it and joining with it. So kundalini can happen to you, or you can jump into the kundalini and realize, oh, I am this. I don't need to fight with what I am. I am the light. I am the grace. I am the intensity. I am the warrior. Okay. So hopefully, Sam, that was helpful. All right, let's hear from Kyle. Kyle, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So my question is about kind of two parts. The first part is choosing, like, the nature of why um, the choice of, or I guess it's a desire for unconditional strength and unconditional love versus maybe just having spiritual experiences and then kind of feeling like you've lost it, maybe while you're at work or at a family reunion or something. Um,
Now hold on a second. I think I'm lost already. So I want you to start again with your question.
so the decision to choose unconditional strength and unconditional love, like basically embodying the awakening rather than having mere experiences,
Rather than having,
just experiences
yeah,
that
yeah,
come and go.
yeah, yeah. And so let me just say this. So the thing that people trip over is almost everyone thinks that spiritual awakening or enlightenment, or whatever you want to call it, is a feeling. And because people think it's a feeling, they chase after spiritual experiences, because spiritual experiences tend to feel good. And so when they're feeling good, people say, I'm awake. But when they're not feeling good and the experience has faded, they say, oh, I lost it. I'm not awake anymore. But awake is not a feeling. Awake is a perspective. It's a perspective. It's a perspective of clarity. It's a perspective of knowing who and what you are. And so God will give us all, like if we hang out in a group like this long enough, God will give us all spiritual experiences. If you come on Wednesday night, get the experience of grace. And oftentimes the grace comes with like a quality. Like, so say tonight we're speaking about the quality of strength. And many of you right now might be feeling this strength, like this sense of power, this sense of uprightness, this sense of nobility. You're like, yes, this is beautiful. I love this strength. This is good stuff here. Let's say 2 hours later, I don't know, like maybe you watch some TV after this and you watch a scary movie and you're not feeling the strength anymore. You say, oh, I lost it. I lost it. But again, like strength is not a feeling. Strength is you being connected to the depth of your being, to this power, whether you feel power or not, whether you feel good or not, whether you feel like fighting or not. And so we're connecting to something beyond feeling and beyond grace. And so this requires a choice. So when difficulty comes up, ask yourself, am I strong? Can you find this strength within you? And again, it's not like a feeling of having big muscles, like some of the strongest people on planet Earth. Like if you look at Amma, like this, I think she's like 5 foot tall. She's incredibly short, the most powerful woman on planet Earth, maybe the most powerful person on planet Earth. Is this short little woman. Because she's connected to her power. She knows who and what she is. She's chosen it. She's chosen it. Her life as a child, like she was beat relentlessly by her parents. Like she'd be writing a book about how terrible her childhood is. She could be in therapy the rest of her life. Amma could have been. But she said, no, I am a goddess. And she connected to this power within her. And she didn't wait for God to bring power to her. She found it within her own self. So you're right. It's this choice. It's your willingness to choose it. And the big fight for all of us is, can I choose my spiritual nature over my egoic nature? So the egoic nature will either be inflamed and agitated, like pushy and violent or, aggressive, and that's not strength, by the way. So our egoic nature would be pushy and like aggressive, or victimized, like super guarded and defended and identified as a victim. And so what we're speaking about here is the willingness just to see, okay, this is where the ego normally lands, outward pushiness or an inward falling apart. I say, no, I don't like either of those two perspectives. I'm choosing to be this radiant light. And we're not making up the feeling of radiant light. Looking inside, notice, like, is there a radiant light here? Keep in mind, there's a radiant light in everyone and everything. I was watching a show with my daughter, like a National Geographic show, and it was about like the big animals in India, and it showed tigers. And a tiger, there's a radiant light. In this little Indian pig, there's a radiant light. In the cobra, there's a radiant light. So are you identified with being this radiant light? Saying, yes, this is what I am. And living and acting from this. Or are we going to live and act from the aggressive one or the victimized one? Or, sometimes spiritual people are like, I'm just going to sit here and wait till grace comes. And when it comes, I'm awake. Ta-da. And when it goes, I'm not awake. Oh no. But grace isn't just some disappearing act. What grace is just showing you is there's another possibility. Trying to light up what you are and remind you of what you are so you can choose it. And this is where, the bold are favored in the realm of spiritual awakening. The bold are the ones who say, yeah, I'm this, I'm the truth. I am the truth. I'm not going to be a little victimized ego who loses touch with my spirituality when I go to work. I'm not going to do that. I'm choosing to be God's light in the school. In the school, because that's what you do. You're a teacher. I'm choosing to be the light in the school. I'm choosing not to go into the school as, I don't know what you could be, but a defeated teacher who's just feeling like, oh, I don't really like my job and this kind of sucks. I'm choosing to be the light at school, in this world, in relationship. I'm choosing to be the light. You with me, Kyle? Is this helpful?
Yeah, the second part of my question is like, when you make this firm decision and you can like feel it in your gut.
Yes.
Does God like kind of turn up the heat in your life? Like, does God present you with challenges?
Often. Yeah, often. Sometimes God gives you like a lot of time just to simmer in that. So that's an option too. I just let you simmer in it for a period of time. And then after you've been established, then God starts to throw you some challenges. And what challenges do is they help you get rooted. They help you get further rooted in it. People think of challenges as some bad thing, but challenges help you get rooted in what you are. And without challenges, you won't ever fully believe what you are. You always have like this naysayer ego in the head. But me, I've had so many crazy challenges in my life, just great difficulty and things where there's just no room for doubt anymore. I know what I am. I know what I am. But the only reason I know what I am is because I've been so beat up by life. And every time I was beat up or beat down, beat down might be the better word for it, humiliated, humbled, whatever, I just look inside and ask this question: is the light still here? Oh yeah, it's still here. It's still here. And when you realize this again and again, it's like, oh, look, the light is still here. The presence that I am is still here. Again, presence, not a feeling, but the presence of divinity, which means radiance, space, strength, clarity, still here. It's here when there's confusion, and it's here when there's no confusion. It's here when there's pain. It's here when there's no pain. It's here when the sun's shining, and it's here when there's a blizzard outside. It's here. And that's the gift, the challenge, is it gives you this opportunity to ask and look and see, is my light still here? And keep in mind, for everyone listening, your light is always here. until you die. And then the light is no longer in the body. Your light is with you in whatever heaven realm you go to. The light, it's always here. It'd be impossible. If the light wasn't here, you'd be dead. The body would be dead and you'd be in heaven. And so just with, when you're challenged, again, strength doesn't care how the challenge feels. Like the truth doesn't care how a challenge feels. The truth just says, what's the truth? That's what we're doing. Doesn't matter how it feels. For the ego, it's all about feeling. It feels good. Feels bad. I lost it. The truth can have a terrible, rotten day, but be deeply rooted in the truth. Saying, I know who and what I am. On this rotten day, I know who and what I am. On a rotten day. Or to take that down a notch, like if we're playing the I got it, I lost it game, like I'm awake, I'm not. So on the days when you don't feel like, like the light of grace, you don't feel, some spiritual energies, you don't feel real expanded in consciousness, the truth will look and say, okay, like I don't feel much spiritually. And then it looks inside and says, but what is it that I am? When you look inside and you're honest, you should immediately notice spaciousness, a quiet aliveness of being. And then if you notice that for a period of time, you'll notice like a stability there, like a strength. It's like, oh, yeah. This is what I am. Even though I wasn't really feeling it egoically. Egoically, I was feeling like a bag of rocks or whatever. Or just like dead, dreary February winter. And you live in Minnesota, right?
Yeah.
Gray skies and overcast. I have seasonal affect disorder, or whatever it is. And so that'd be a common thing to get, living in Minnesota in the winter. It's like, get those gray skies. Especially if you live in a city and there's just like heaviness and darkness. It'd be easy just to identify with egoic feelings. But keep in mind, these spiritual qualities that I'm speaking about, they're not feelings. They're your essence. They're your essence. Essence doesn't come and go. Essence is here. The reason most people don't recognize essence is because they're looking to their head, they're looking to their egoic feeling nature to define what they are, versus looking at the direct experience of what they actually are. What am I in my direct experience? Space, light, love, strength, radiance, luminosity, always here in every single person on planet Earth. Depressed or not, spiritually awake or not, essence is always here. You with me, or anything else you want to share?
Just the last thing I was thinking of, I actually pulled out a book from my library yesterday, and I actually read a book when I was like 16 from Martin Luther King called Strength to Love. And
Yeah.
I just love that title.
Yeah. So that's it. That's it right there. Yeah. Well, beautiful, Kyle. Thanks for sharing, my friend. Yeah. Much love. Okay. Let's see here. Farad, are you here?
Hi, Craig. Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Good to be with you. I have two questions for you tonight. I'll ask the easier one first. So, the type of contraction that I feel energetically is not at any chakra center, but it's like in the the mouth area, like somewhere in the middle, and the a bit of like in a jaw area. So I was wondering if this is something that you have seen before, and if there is something I can do about it. Is this like the lower chakras are not opened enough, that the energy is mostly in the head and this area? Or...
Yeah. So so you're a kundalini person, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So the chakra in the mouth and the jaw, that's the throat chakra. So often we think of the throat chakra is here. The throat chakras are really like here. And chakras are really big. So it includes the throat and the jaw. And I say it often, but it's really common. The throat chakra tends to give people a lot of difficulty, and it almost always has to do with a couple things. It's either we have a strong internal judge and critic, or we have a strong controlling nature. And so if you have either of those, that's most everyone on planet Earth. You have either of those, that's why you feel energy stuck there, or concentrated there, or difficulty there. And it can manifest a lot of different ways. Sometimes with people, it gets real intense, and it kind of floats up in the like the eyes and the forehead, so it can kind of go up, like wrap around the skull a little bit up here. Sometimes it just stays right in the jaw as clenching or tension. Sometimes it could be weird swallowing issues. Like with me, I had like chronic like hacking and mucus like kind of things, phlegm, where, with my internal critic, it wasn't so much like self-hatred. It was more like not allowing myself to speak, not allowing myself to be open. And most people teach that the throat chakra has to do with expression, and that is true. But really what it has to do with is trust. Do I trust this energy that's awakening within me? Do I feel that it's safe to open? And when someone is like, in order to be really expressive, like to be a singer, you have to believe that, oh, it's safe to sing. It's safe to sing. Like I can go and sing my song in the world. Like my mother, when she was young, she went to Catholic school, and the nuns told her she had a terrible voice, and told her not to sing any of the songs, to just move her mouth, but not sing. And so, my mind, this thought was like, I don't feel safe. It's not safe for me to open my mouth. It's not safe for me to be in this world. Terrible thing to say to, to a child, by the way. It's like the absolute wrong thing you want to say to a kid, is say you're not allowed to talk, not allowed to sing. I went to church this week, and my daughter goes to Catholic school. And so we were at Mass, and the children started singing the first song. I can't remember what the song was, but I just started crying. It was so beautiful, and the church was so full of light through this singing. So you have all these young kids, and they're happily, joyously, the throat chakras are open, and they're singing their hearts out. And it was so beautiful. It was much better, much greater light and expression than whatever the priest, the sermon the priest gave. And so it's this willingness, like, do I trust in God? Do I feel held by God? Do I feel loved by God? And sometimes if you're a kid, you feel that way. You just, before you've been beat up by life, you just feel, I love God. I have trust in God. I have trust in Jesus. I have trust in the Almighty. And so I am really open. But, for most of us, when we live long enough, we've had people, that have shot us down, told us to shut the hell up, be quiet, you shouldn't be here, we don't like you, we don't like your kind, we don't like what you are, we don't like the color of your skin, we don't like your ethnicity or sexuality, we don't like whatever it is. We don't like something about you. And so when we hear that as a kid, we tend to clench and just like shut down here in our throat. What it does is it actually keeps us from bursting out and crying when we close our throat chakra. And so then we're not further humiliated when someone tells us, shut the hell up, kid. And so we keep our emotions stuck in our heart and stuck in our belly. And then there's this weird division that happens where we tend to live in our head. And we live in our head, afraid of our emotions, because our emotions might get us in trouble or humiliated. And so we live in our head. And when we're in our head and we're shut here, we tend to just start just controlling and thinking and planning and strategizing. And then that shows up in our relationship to spirituality. And with something as wild as kundalini awakening or just spiritual awakening, the egoic nervous system and the critic says, no, like, I don't want this. This is too much. I'm going to control it. I'm going to manage it. I'm going to say the right mantra so it moves through me efficiently and swiftly, like the guru said in the book. And, I'm going to practice kundalini science, like turning spirituality into some kind of science where it can be logical. And one of the things with the throat chakra is that God is asking you, do you trust in my will, in my grace, in my way? And God's way is wild. It's mysterious. It's unknown. It's unfathomable. It's not something that we can control. It's not something we can control. And so what we have here is we have an animal nervous system response, that's arising in relationship to the intelligence and the grace of God waking up in you in the form of kundalini. And so we have an animal response. That's the kind of clenching or the shutting down, so it's unconscious in response to this huge raging river of light and grace. And so we have, again, this is that choice. Am I a warrior? If I'm a warrior, it's like, a divine warrior is we take the armor of ego off and we jump in the river of grace. We jump in the river of awakening and say, hell yeah, let's do this, God. Like, you show me the way. You show me, Lord. You just jump in the river, the raging river, and you say yes. Where the throat chakra, if it's scared, it says, nope, no way. No, I don't like this in any way. And so what I have found over the years is that, like, if we go back to like the story, like I said, about my mother, like if a kid's been shut down, a kid is scared. And yes, if you look like developmentally, what does a child need? To trust again. To trust again. You give them a sense of safety, you help calm them down, and you take them into the experience and you show them it's okay. But it has to come in a space of love. It can't come from being forced, because that's the ego thing again. So if we look at just the basics of it, is if there's tension in any of the centers, but especially the throat in this example, is you help your mind to relax. You help your body to relax, your nervous system to relax. You help the body, the mind, the nervous system to feel safe. And so when we're relaxed and when we feel safety, very easy to trust. And so some of this has to do with, well, what is your relationship to God? Like, do you feel safe in God's presence? Or do you not trust God? Do you feel safe with this energy, or do you not trust it? And so, one of the ways I worked with myself in this regard was I literally spent a lot of time in laying down on the ground. And I taught my nervous system, like when you're laying down on the ground, the nervous system relaxes. And it's like, oh, like I'm held by the earth, I'm held by the bed, I'm held by the couch. I'm okay. I'm okay. So you lay down and then you breathe deeply. Deep, like, vagal nerve breathing, which is like deep, full breaths. And you train the body that I'm safe. I'm safe. It's okay to open. And as you do so, the energy starts flowing and you continue to breathe deeply, not short, shallow breaths, because that'll close the throat chakra, but deep, full breaths, teaching the body that I'm safe and I'm so safe I can open and experience this river of energy and not turn away, not run away. Fair enough?
Yeah, that was really to the point. I experienced that. Can I ask the second one, or
Yeah, sure.
like yes? So basically, like my embarking upon a spiritual path was a result of an emotional trauma for me back in 2014, and the main practice that I was doing was self-inquiry, based on Ramana Maharishi's method and teachers like Rupert Spira. And then it's been my go-to when things are difficult, really, as a result of the pressure of the depression. I would go to search for my true self. And then I was doing it very intensively before, I had started having kundalini arousal. So I read now from different books that I read that is suggested to stop the practice that kind of somebody was doing before and intensively. And I'm doing more of like, body scan and try to connect with my body. But there is this longing, as a result of the pressure, as traumas bubble up, to go back to that who am I question again. And I wonder what is your take on that? Am I safe to do that? I'm very much in the midst of the battle.
So I'll say this. So the way inquiry is taught in the West is it's taught in such a highly mental way that it tends to condense a lot of energy up here. And it's almost like we're up here in our third eye, in our brain, like our egoic identity. And we're asking, who am I? In a philosophical sense. And what we do is we tend to condense a lot of energy here. Whereas what God is trying to show you is that you are the energy of light. And this light is radiating throughout the entirety of your body. And so we're busy, who am I, who am I, who am I? Well, there's this burning light in our root or in our heart or in our throat. It's like, go into the light. God's trying to show you what you are. Life is trying to show you what you are. Now, can you open to your direct experience? And so, I would say you've probably overdone the practice of inquiry. And if you're going to do it now, it has to be a felt thing, like a felt practice where you're in the body, in the feeling. And by the body, I mean the totality of what you are. The totality of what you are. Not just one little thing here. Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? It's like, no, what is this? Like, what is this thing? And can you feel in your fingertips and the palms of your hands and your arms, your legs, your feet, your pelvis, your heart? Can you feel beyond yourself? Say, oh, look, I'm not just this body. I'm not just this little point in my head. I'm the entirety. The entirety of experience. I sat in Ramana's cave at Skanda Ashram at the top of Mount Arunachala. And I asked myself, who am I? And I felt this intensity in my throat And it felt as if I was like I just swallowed a billiards ball and it got stuck in my throat. I was like, what the hell is this? And so I didn't stay at any, inquiry like, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? I went into that direct experience of the pain and the tension. And as I opened to it, there was like 8 spiritual universes that opened up within me. It was this wild, immense experience. I realized, oh, I'm not just like this little character Craig who's trying to meditate 14 hours a day because that's what I read in the book I was supposed to do when I asked this question. I asked a question, and experience came forward, and I explored the direct experience of what was happening in this moment. And so that's not going to be something, up here in the head. It's going to be throughout the entirety of your being. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And it's so nice to have you here. Are those the Vancouver lights in the background there?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Well, what a beautiful city. I hate cities, but for some reason I love Vancouver. So, anyways, well, nice to have you, Farad.
Nice to be with you. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay. Let me just check here. See any other questions popping up. Jay writes, Craig, you mentioned that this is a dark world a few times in the past. What do you mean that this is a dark world? When I hear that, it makes me feel less optimistic about life, to be honest. Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. I say it's a dark world in the sense that there's a lot of heaviness here. Like there's a war going on right now. I mean, Europe's being invaded for the first time since Nazi Germany. There's darkness here on planet Earth. There's confusion, there's chaos. A more healthy way of saying it, or helpful or optimistic way of saying it, Jay, might be that this is an evolutionary world. And we are a world where we're growing out of being an animal being and growing into being a human being. We haven't gotten that far yet. But some of us on the evolving edge are inviting us to outgrow our human nature and grow and be a divine being. And that's the path that I'm a part of. But my God, we at least need to grow in being loving, compassionate human beings first. And so I say it's a dark world in the sense that there's a lot of heaviness here. There's war, there's violence, there's rape, there's hell here. We don't have to go too far to find these things. But of course, this world is so utterly beautiful. I mean, every day I wake up and I fall in love with my 2 little dogs. I fall in love with all the girls in my house. I fall in love with the big blue sky that I get to experience every day. I fall in love with the melting snow, and there's so much beauty in each of you. And so this is a world of light. It's also a world of darkness. It's a world of both. But sometimes I'll emphasize that, it's a world of darkness. When you go to heaven and you look back at life on planet Earth, you'll see, oh my God, like heaven is literally made of light. And this world is made of matter and light. and so you go with confusion and animal nature and all kinds of things. And so that's why I say that, Jay. I don't want you to feel not optimistic. I want you to believe in the light. The light will triumph, and it is triumphing. But sometimes, sometimes people make decisions in alignment with ego. Like Mr. Putin is aligning with ego and creating untold suffering. Untold suffering. And so the great question is, what kind of person are we? Are we going to stand up for light? Are we going to shine our light and create more of a world of light? Are we going to build the foundation of light in this world and make this light manifest? Are we willing to give of ourselves as Christ did, as Buddha did, as the great ones did? Or are we going to surrender to the movement of ego? Are we going to fight for truth and light and love? Or are we going to fight for ego? How are we going to live in this world? And so all of us have the opportunity to make this world lighter or heavier. And I can see in this room, in this group, I see an incredible amount of light. A little bit of confusion. A little bit of confusion every now and then. Incredible amount of light. A little bit of confusion. And so that's the question, is how do we respond to confusion? How do we respond? So anyways, well, so much love to each and every one of you. My heart is with you. My heart is with this world. My heart's with the people of Ukraine, and my heart is with Mr. Putin, inviting him to come to love, come to peace, our whole world to come to peace. My God, it's not just the Russians who get confused with their militaries. Sometimes it's the United States. I invite us all to join in light. And so hopefully I'll see you all on this Wednesday. Good night, everyone.